Now, building back better across societies is going to require a lot of global effort and cooperation as the world faces common challenges to the future of humanity. But the COVID-19 pandemic has proven a divisive rather than a uniting force, causing the world to see a reversal of progress in achieving the UN's Sustainable Development Goals for 2030. How can the global community move forward together? For this, we speak today with Maria Ivanova, Director of the Centre for Governance and Sustainability and Professor of Global Governance at the University of Massachusetts, and author of the book, The Untold Story of the World's Leading Environmental Institution, the UNEP at 50, which was recently published. Now, welcome to our show, Professor. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we saw the SDG Moment event take place a few weeks ago, and well, it really highlighted the importance of the global goals for 2030 and how the world has actually seen a reversal in progress due to the pandemic. And well, young activists like Greta Thunberg and now BTS, they represent this wake-up call for governments to take more rigorous action in order to really create a better, sustainable world for future generations. Now, again, it was clear that the world has seen a reversal of progress in achieving the SDGs and its overarching goal of leaving nobody behind. So who throughout this crisis have been pushed further behind on the path of development and empowerment?
Well, thank you for having me on the show and for raising this very important question. I think young people today are really important to help us reverse the trajectory that we are going on. And Greta Thunberg and BTS actually give me hope. Greta Thunberg was the young person who put the climate crisis on the agenda. She was Time Magazine's Person of the Year in 2019. And she really made us all come together around the issue of a climate crisis. And now BTS, your K-pop sensation, says we don't have climate change, we have a climate crisis. They were also on the cover of Time Magazine as the Entertainer of the Year in 2020. And they're now the special presidential envoy for future generations that were appointed by Korean President Moon Jae-in. And they performed at the UN General Assembly this year, which was absolutely a sensation. 1 million people tuned in to see them, and then 10 million people watched their permission to dance performance on the UN YouTube channel. So I think the young people, these young actors, have triggered a change in the United Nations, and the UN Secretary General has now made long-term thinking and future generations a key priority. In his report, Our Common Agenda, he committed to creating a Futures Lab, a declaration on future generations to be considered by governments, and creating a United Nations Special Envoy to ensure that future generations are taken into account in budgetary decisions. So I sincerely hope that these young people will help us leapfrog and reverse the trajectory that we're currently on, and that we will be able to achieve the SDGs.
And this pandemic has really unveiled this critical turning point that humanity is at. In what ways has COVID-19 proven to be a human security crisis?
It's a very interesting question that you would frame it as human security. I actually direct the PhD program in global governance and human security that we have at the University of Massachusetts, Boston. And we started that program in 2012, almost 10 years ago now. And it started from the idea of human security, which the Japanese government defines as the ability of humans to lead healthy and productive lives in harmony with nature. The ability of humans to lead healthy and productive lives in harmony with nature. The COVID-19 crisis has threatened every single aspect of that concept. Health, we are not healthy. We are not productive, human well-being. So human health, human well-being, and harmony with nature. So it has shattered the foundations of the concept of human security, and we now need mechanisms to address it.
And well, it seems that for the past 2 decades or so, countries couldn't really agree on how to approach human security issues. But what has this pandemic taught us about how the global community should tackle non-traditional security threats?
Oh, this pandemic has highlighted a lot of problems that we have. It has really laid bare the inequalities that we are facing it at the global level, at the national level. It has shown us not only what needs to be done, but what should not be done. What needs to be done and what is necessary is solidarity. Yet, in this pandemic, in this world, we acted in the most narrowly defined self-interest. We saw the frailty, the fragility of supply chains and how that reverberated throughout the global economy. We also saw very clearly that when we treat a non-traditional security threat as a traditional security threat, what we fuel is nationalism. What we fuel is inadequate action. And yet we have had significant difficulties in devising and especially in coordinating a global response. And I clearly see the gap that we had in global institutions, in effective global institutions that could take the leadership. But I also saw the importance of individual choice to global impacts and to global outcomes. We saw how our own decisions to wear masks or not to wear masks, to get vaccinated or not get vaccinated, are actually impacting not only our health, but the health of our communities, that the communities that we live in, but also the communities that we travel to or that people travel to our community. So it has really, really highlighted the global interdependence and the importance of a global response.
And as you mentioned, we are very dependent on one another, but we've seen a severe lack of global coordination when it came to the initial pandemic response, especially. How should then this growing sense of nationalism that you mentioned be addressed when tackling human security issues? What barriers need to be overcome?
So we need to transcend the nationalism idea. For that, we do need ideas about globalism. And we have been thinking about these issues for a number of years. This is the reason the United Nations was created in 1945 in the aftermath of the Second World War. And yet its ideals, its core mission is still to be fulfilled. So I think that we do need more and bolder ideas that transcend nationalism, but we also need leadership. And we need leadership at 2 levels, at individual level and at the institutional level. We need to empower individuals to become leaders. And we're seeing what BTS is doing as a global sensation. And they are empowering young people to become leaders, to actually take action. And yet we need leadership at an institutional level. We need our international institutions to be able to stand up, have the authority to tell the world how to behave in order to solve these global crises that impact all of us and where all of us have a role to play and have to take responsibility.
And it seems that we're seeing inklings of efforts towards that. The world, of course, needs to build back better, and in doing so, seems the only way forward is going net zero. And beginning with President Joe Biden's climate summit earlier this year, followed by the P4G Partnership for Growth Summit in Seoul, what would you like to see during the upcoming COP26 meeting?
So these are really big questions, and a lot of us are dreaming about it and thinking what we'd like to see. But let me start first by the notion of building back better. I really like alliterations, and these three B's ring and roll off our tongues easily. And yet, I'd like to take one of those B's back, the back, building back better. I would like us to build better, not build back better. I want us to build better. I want us to build a different reality, not going back to what we had, but going forward to what we envision, what we see is necessary. And so these international meetings, these international conventions where countries gather and make commitments are absolutely critical. So what I would like to see from COP26 in Glasgow, in a sense, is two things. I would like to see ambition, and I would like to see implementation. Ambition of goals. What are we ready to achieve? What do we want to achieve to resolve the climate crisis? But then commitment to implementation, or implementation of commitments. So the commitment to implement our commitments. When I participated in the first Paris Peace Forum a few years ago, Christine Lagarde, the head of the International Monetary Fund at the time, was asked, if you had one wish, if there was a magic wand that you could wave and change the world, what would that be? And she said, I would like to see countries do what they promise to do. And so I think the two sides of ambition and implementation really go together. And I would like us to emerge from Glasgow with both ambition and serious commitment to implementation.
Right, so really dropping the back, not looking back to the world we had previously, and also not going back on promises. Well, the US and its Quad partners, along with G7 countries, they aim to cooperate on climate technology, health and infrastructure. And this has widely been seen as a move to counter China, which has been initiating similar efforts with a lot of bankrolling of finances. But do you think we're going to see regionalism and friction between security alliances continue to intensify across the world? And what will this mean for global institutions? Is their significance going to diminish?
So regionalism will increase. And I don't see that as a threat. I actually welcome such developments, because regionalism is important. We can see solidarity at the regional level. We saw the fragility of the global supply chains, and can we see a much closer regional integration where we actually help our neighbors, and in that we also help ourselves in the moments of need, but also in the moments of plenty that we are able to share. In terms of China, I actually welcome this competition, and yes, China is investing, and its technology is proving really groundbreaking in terms of addressing the climate crisis, for example. So I do see regionalism as a possible development, absolutely, but that would also entail a realization of the importance of institutions, because we cannot have greater regionalism without the necessary institutions. And there are many of them that exist at a regional level, because we need collective action at the regional level and at the global level. So I expect that with increase in regionalism, we will realize the importance of institutions and will work toward their strengthening, not only at the regional level, but also at the global level.
And how do you think countries can better prepare to work together in order to build better? And what fundamental values do you think should be upheld in the process?
So to actually resolve the global problems we have, you're absolutely right. We need to work together. But we need a transformation. We need a fundamental transformation at a systemic level, at a global level. And for that, what will be critical is a more networked, more inclusive multilateral system that is anchored within the United Nations as the core mechanism. And so for this transformation to take place, we do need a change in mindset, and we do need to have a set of core values. And actually, I was reading just before we spoke the book by Christiana Figueres and Tom Rivet-Carnac, The Future We Choose, a great book about climate change, the climate crisis, and what is to be done. And I just wrote down a quote that I'd like to kind of respond to your question with about what values we need. Because Christiana and Tom say we must move beyond defeatism to optimism, beyond extraction to regeneration, beyond linear to circular economies, beyond individual benefit toward the common good, beyond short-term thinking toward long-term thinking and acting. I think those will be the values, the principles at the core of an effective global transformation.
Right, and sustainability really being at the heart of things as we move forward. And well, once a recipient of international aid, South Korea has been trying to give back to the world through its developmental know-how, experience, and also aiming to host and participate in a number of UN-affiliated organisations like the Green Climate Fund. As the world is expected to see greater inequality and digital gaps as well emerge within and between societies after the pandemic, which areas of strength do you think the country could contribute so that nobody is left behind?
It is really amazing to see how South Korea has developed and blossomed and thrived. And you mentioned, as from a recipient of international aid, it has become a contributor of international aid, and a very important one. But I think South Korea's contributions are exceptional in the areas of ideas and leadership. For example, one area where we've seen how South Korea has managed the COVID crisis is with the digital surveillance, and how you have managed to trace cases and interactions, and to really react swiftly to the spread of the disease. I think one idea that could be used in this new reality and to help us tackle the climate crisis is, how do we use digital surveillance in the best way for resolving climate issues, for monitoring climate change or the climate crisis, or the resolution of other global problems? And also on leadership, you mentioned South Korea is hosting the headquarters of the Green Climate Fund, which is an important actor in the global institutional landscape on climate. So it is hosting institutions, but it's also provided individual leadership. It gave us the Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon, and I had the honor of working with him as a member of the scientific advisory board that he established in 2014 with scientists from around the world to advise the Secretary General on issues of science and sustainability. And I was very inspired and heartened to read in the report of the current UN Secretary General, our common agenda that just came out, that he will re-establish the scientific advisory board that was first created by Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. So I think South Korea has given a lot to the world, and we expect a lot more.
Well, that was Maria Ivanova, Director of the Centre for Governance and Sustainability at the University of Massachusetts. And for more invaluable insights on climate change and the importance of institutions, do check out her book, The Untold Stories of the World's Leading Environmental Institution, the UNEP at 50. Again, thank you so much for your time, Professor.
Thank you.
And to our viewers, as always, thank you very much for watching.